you've been training for 5 years, but nobody ever really dialed in the technique piece with you, and then somebody's calling out the technique stuff, it is totally possible to feel like, you know, I'm more advanced, but you're really not that advanced if you're unable to see the increase in the weight or see the increase in skill quality or see the increase, looking at these different variables. It's very telling. And that's why it is just so important that you have to take the time to learn how to lift before you can train. It's a skill set and you can't rush skills.
Get in, losers. We're going lifting. Lifting heavy weights does not make a woman bulky. Like, that act alone is not going to do it. So do not be fearful that just because you lift heavier weights, that is going to be the outcome. I have episodes on the show where we talk about, what it actually takes to build serious muscle. And I will tell you, the women who really do look like She-Hulks, they are doing steroids in addition to being really dialed in with their nutrition and their lifting. But the act of lifting those heavy weights alone, it's not going to do it. So take a breath.
Don't fret about that. And what we need to have a conversation about today is you actually lifting heavy enough weights to see progress in the direction that you're trying to go, which is most likely strong and defined if you were tuning into the Dangerous Woman podcast, strong over skinny. So just because you have been lifting for a number of years does not make you advanced. I've had several conversations recently where people are telling me, I'm just not seeing a whole lot of progress with my body. What's the problem? And I ask them, well, what's going on in your program? And they tell me that they are squatting, they are deadlifting, they are doing some really great exercises. And the way it's programmed in, some of the programs are not very good, but other programs, they are good. And they tell me, I've been doing this for 5 years. I am advanced. But when they tell me what kind of weight they can move, that tells me very quickly, you are or you are not advanced. Now, this all comes down to science. So I need you to buckle up and put the science cap on, okay? When you do not have a strong foundation for exercises like deadlifts, for squats, if you do not learn how to create tension, if you do not learn how to take advantage of your breath, if you do not learn proper alignment and how to engage different muscle groups, it is 1,000% possible to go through the motions, but not actually see progress. And I know people who have been doing this for years, thinking that they are advanced. They're not advanced. They might still be more of the beginner or the novice. And this can even be the case for people who are showing up consistently. Progressive overload needs to be your BFF if you do have a goal of building muscle, building strength, or the combination of the two. There are certain situations where, the weight's really not going to get that much heavier. Like, I train a bunch of people in their 70s. I have some people in their late 70s. And I would say, based on risk versus reward, my first impression with those folks is not always to go heavier. But I will tell you, for my 20, 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old clients, the weight is going to go fucking up over time. It's not that it has to go up, week to week, month to month. But when you are consistently showing up and you have good form, the weight over time should progressively be getting heavier. There's times where the weight isn't necessarily the variable. Like, for example, I run a program called Swing to Snatch. And in Swing to Snatch, they are learning how to train with kettlebells. And the focus isn't necessarily on the weight consistently getting heavier. The weight does get heavier over the course of those 13 weeks, but so much of it is skill acquisition. Like in order to snatch a kettlebell, you need to be able to single arm swing a kettlebell. In order to single arm swing, you need to be able to swing. In order to swing, you need to be able to do a dead stop swing. You need to be able to do a hike back. You need to be able to do a deadlift. So the way that progressive overload happens in a program like that, the main variable we play with is looking at skill acquisition, one skill building off of the next. But for most people looking to build muscle or build strength, and they already, they're not doing any crazy skills that require a tremendous amount of finesse, one of the main variables is going to be making the weight a little bit heavier over time by being able to, collect more reps, good quality reps over the course of a program. And for a lot of people, they get fearful of going heavier. Why do you think they get fearful of going heavier? Because it feels like they can't go heavier. Why does it feel like they can't go heavier? Because they haven't learned proper alignment. They're feeling the wrong muscles. They don't know how to breathe. They don't know how to take their breath to a place that's going to give them an advantage. They don't understand how to create total body tension, because it's one of those things that you have to feel. You're not necessarily going to see if somebody has more tension or not. Like, I have an eye where I can tell if somebody's creating tension or not. I've tried to experiment with this on social media. I actually have a video that went viral where I show the same exercise with one piece being a little bit different than the other. For example, there's a video, there's a squat, there's a deadlift, there's a bent over row, there's a push press. The squat, I show the difference between squatting low enough and not. The bent over row, I show the difference between being properly aligned, showing off the neck versus not. The deadlift, I show what happens when the knees are too far forward versus when they're in the right position. The push press, I believe it's alignment in that one as well. I show the difference between overarching at the back versus staying neutral. And it's these little details where if you overlook them in the beginning, it is going to cap what you are capable of doing. And it's one of those things that you might think, I've been lifting for 5 years, so I must be advanced, but you're not, because you don't have this foundation that's been allowing you to implement progressive overload over the last 5 years. So there are certain exercises that are very telling of what your skill level is. And skill level is one of those things where, everybody's going to get there at a different point in time. And a lot of that comes down to, how consistently are you able to show up and train? I've been lifting for over 10 years, but I would say I only started lifting like seriously. And what I mean by seriously is following a progressive program that has been extremely strategic to achieve, specific goals over the last 5 years. And hitting some of the markers I'm about to share with you, it took me, like 5 years to be able to achieve some of these things. Whereas I remember I had this one client, and some of the things that it took me, years to be able to accomplish, it took her in like a year, because she was so consistent. I knew so much more about programming for her than I did in the beginning when I was doing a lot of it for myself. And she was just so hungry to show up. And the rate at which she progressed was just really fast. Whereas that's not always going to be the case for everyone. So it's not to say that like you need to become, advanced or elite within X amount of time, but it is to say that people are going to go from beginner to intermediate to advanced to elite on different timelines. And it's not to say that like it's going to happen because you're training 5 times versus 3 times versus like anything like that. But some of these markers help us to see like, well, where are you at? So like, for example, if we look at something, and these standards kind of change based on who you are getting this kind of stuff from. But like in the kettlebell community, when I talk about testing size bells, the idea of the testing size bell in hardstyle kettlebell technique comes from RKC. Strong First also works with testing size bells. And for somebody who is beginning their kettlebell journey, you should be able to perform the big 6 exercises. So that is your squat, that's your swing, that's your strict press, your Turkish get up, your clean, and your snatch with your testing size bell as somebody who is not just starting, but I would say an advanced beginner. You should be able to perform all of those skills correctly with your testing size bell. If you can't do all of that stuff with your testing size bell, and you've been training with kettlebells for 5 years, I would say you are somebody who has been training with kettlebells for 5 years, but I would still consider you to be a beginner, not an advanced beginner. And when it comes to things like, what can you deadlift? What can you barbell back squat? What can you strict press? All of those things have like standard numbers next to them as well. For example, I'm trying to remember who exactly I collected this from. It's from one of the predominant strength authorities in the space, but let's see what we have. Some of the markers. 1 rep max for a deadlift. A beginner should be able to do half of their body weight for a 1 rep max. For somebody who's intermediate, they should be able to do 1.25 times their body weight. For somebody who is advanced, they should be able to 1 rep max 1.5 times their body weight. For somebody who is elite, they should be able to deadlift for a 1 rep max at least 2 times their body weight. So when you're saying, you're advanced and you've been lifting for 5 years, but, you're only deadlifting your, a kettlebell that's, 35 pounds, it's like you're not as advanced as you think you are. Like these numbers are coming at us to show what the standard is. And that standard only happens if you have the foundation, you know how to create tension, you know how to breathe, you understand alignment, and you've been training consistently. Like you can have the tension, the breath, the alignment, all that stuff, and not train consistently. And that's going to prevent you from going from the beginner to the intermediate to the advanced to the elite. You can show up consistently, but if you don't have that foundation, you're not going to be able to go from beginner to intermediate to advanced to elite. You need both of those pieces over time to be able to progress from the beginner to the intermediate to the advanced to the elite. And in order to really see the body changing, in order to see more muscle being built over time, more strength gains happening over time, you should be going from the beginner to the intermediate to the advanced. I don't think the average person is necessarily going to get into that elite category, but they absolutely can. That is not a category that's just reserved for, fitness professionals by any means. I mean, I know plenty of people who don't have jobs in that space and, they're deadlifting a shit ton of weight. And the reason that's happening is because they have a really strong foundation. They show up consistently, and they have a program where they are implementing progressive overload. Inevitably, the weight is going to go up over time. It's not to say that, you're going to go from beginner to elite in a week, in a month. But I would say for a lot of people who do show up consistently, that stuff is going to happen over the course of, a few years. I mean, there's a woman that I met. She's in one of the viral reels on my Instagram. Trying to remember if we put her on the YouTube channel or not, but this 60-something-year-old woman, I met her. I don't train her. I met her at this gym where I was filming content at, and she had said, when I was 68 years old, she wanted to start lifting. She wanted to make sure she was setting her future self up for success. I find for a lot of people who are entering that stage of life, the goal of being able to be independent is really important to them, right? Because you don't know if you do have a partner, you don't know if they're going to die before you. If you don't have family, if you don't have a lot of friends, like you need to be able to take care of yourself. So being able to, open jars, being able to reach to high countertops, all that stuff seems to really turn into the focus of why do I want to get stronger. Anyways, she started deadlifting, and eventually she got to the point where she entered a powerlifting competition. And this 60-something-year-old woman is now in her late 70s, and she's deadlifting over 200 pounds. And I don't know how much she weighs, but my guess is she's probably like around 130 pounds. And I share that with you so you understand that age is not a limiting factor. Like, if you have a good foundation, you show up consistently, then you should be going from the novice to the beginner to the intermediate to the advanced to the elite. The time in which that happens, again, it's going to look different for everyone. And I would say anybody who's listening to this, who, maybe you are in your 60s, the recovery time is kind of like the big differentiating factor between you and like the 30-something-year-olds. Like, they're just going to be able to recover quicker than you, mostly to do with age. But age is not a reason as to why you should not be getting stronger over time. And if you are somebody who isn't seeing the weight going up, why isn't the weight going up? Are you babying yourself? Or have you been working with a coach who's been babying you? I think there's a lot of coaches in the fitness industry, and everybody has good intentions, but not everybody is coaching, or you might not be attracted to the coaches who are in alignment with the goals that, you have. I encounter plenty of people where the goal is, I just want to move. I just want to move. I want to make sure I don't have aches and pains in my body. That is very different than I want to train with the purpose of building muscle. I want to train with the purpose of building strength. Like, feeling good in your body, it will come. Like, that's like a byproduct of the building muscle, building strength. But moving to feel good in your body does not automatically mean that a byproduct is going to be building muscle or building strength. Does that make sense? One thing that I encounter a fair amount with people is them thinking that they should be making further progress, but the technique not being there. And that can be a really hard pill to swallow, especially for people who have been lifting or using kettlebells for a significantly long amount of time. If you've been training for 5 years, but nobody ever really dialed in the technique piece with you, and then somebody's calling out the technique stuff, it is totally possible to feel like, I'm more advanced, but you're really not that advanced if you're unable to see the increase in the weight, or see the increase in skill quality, or see the increase, looking at these different variables. It's very telling. And that's why it is just so important that you have to take the time to learn how to lift before you can train. It's a skill set, and you can't rush skills. I mean, you can, and I see people trying to do that all the time. And I understand that it's more exciting to run instead of crawl. But if you don't take the time to learn how to crawl, you might start running and then you sprain an ankle, or you turn into the person who's just like, this isn't real. I can't actually see progress. Strength training, kettlebells, like, it's bullshit. And it's like, it's not bullshit, but you took a bullshit approach. You didn't take the time to learn. You thought breathing, you thought tension, you thought soft tissue work was, silly things to look over. And listen, there was a time where I was like, all of that stuff is bullshit. And I made a lot of progress. And then I capped out. And I remember like crying to Tim at some point, being like, why am I not making more progress? And he was like, because you overlooked the fucking basics. And you know what I had to do? I had to tell my ego to fuck off. And I had to take time to go back. I had to take a step backwards. And in taking a step backwards, that's what propelled me forwards. Everybody wants to feel like I'm the master, but nobody wants to put in the hours to become the master. It takes time. And good thing it takes time. You can't expect to just know everything day one, week one, month one, year one. It takes time. And it's a beautiful thing that it takes time, because you can just be, you can enjoy, you can ask questions. You don't have to feel the pressure like you're supposed to know everything. You don't know what you don't know. And it takes time for this stuff to get hardwired in your body. And that's okay. If you want to be the person who is really fucking strong and there's nothing fake about it. And what I mean by that is like, I've seen plenty of people in the fitness space who try to capture a piece of content, like just in a moment, who like maybe they get a lucky shot of something, but it's not something that they can keep replicating. If you want to be somebody who really is unshakable, somebody who really is advanced in their practice, it's not enough to just go through the motions. It's not enough to just think, you know, it's going to come in X amount of time. You have to be intentional. You have to take the time to learn. You need the combination of all of that, especially the intentionality, in order to become somebody who is unshakable, that continues to make serious progress. It's not enough to just show up. You have to take the time to learn and then train and then show up. It doesn't work without that strong foundation. And for anybody who thinks that you can get away without having that strong foundation, you're going to learn. And then you are going to be faced with the decision of, okay, this stuff doesn't work. Or you're going to drop the ego. You're going to take a step back. You're going to learn. And then you're going to see so much progress. And I hope that you're the second person. I know you can be the second person. The only person who's going to allow that to be the outcome of your story, though, is you. And with that, it doesn't come from being random workouts. Oh my gosh, I like wanted to rip my hair out. I just did a round of swing to snatch, and this woman had an incredible experience, and she posts like all of her workouts on Instagram, which I love getting to watch. And something that I always remind people after swing to snatch is just because I'm the coach that you are learning technique from, I don't have to be the coach that you stick with. I love it when people want to continue with me, and I have the offers set up for people to be able to continue with me. But I do understand that, you know, some people, they want to be in person, or some people it's like they come because they know I'm such a stickler for form and they're going to get really good, you know, form checks and learn the stuff, but they want to be with somebody else. But I had this one woman and she fucking crushed it. And now I see her going back to her random workout routines. And, you know, it doesn't hurt me, right? Like, I really don't care what other people are doing for their training. I care what I'm doing for my training. But what sucks to watch is somebody knowing what to do and then just choosing a random route, knowing that their goal is strong and defined. But at the end of the day, you know, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But let me tell you this, if you want to be strong and defined, you need the solid foundation. You need to learn the language of lifting. You need to stick to a progressive training program. It's not going random. It's not just doing, you know, whatever you want, whenever you want. You can absolutely do that, but you can't be surprised if you're not getting these specific results of strong and defined. Again, it's not to say that you can't make progress, but doing things very strategically versus randomly, it's going to change the pace of the results that you get. And that's really the secret. I mean, it's not a secret, but like that is the recipe to go from the beginner to the intermediate to the advanced to the elite. So just putting that out there, you know, take what serves you from this, leave what doesn't. And if you have any further questions, feel free to drop it in the comment section. I don't know where you're consuming this right now, but if you are on YouTube, definitely drop the comments there and I will respond to you in regards to this video. And that's all I really have to say about that. So as we wrap this one up, it's not enough to be consistent in order to become the advanced lifter. You need to be strategic. You need to be intentionally consistent to become that advanced version of the lifter that you currently are. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Dangerous Woman podcast. Make sure to give us a follow so you never miss an episode, and check us out on YouTube. There is the podcast, there are lives, there are shorts, and more to come.